I would like to yield the floor to our fantastic project PI from Hanken School of Economics, Ehrnström Fuentes. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, and a warm welcome to everyone who is here. I'm very glad that we are able to organize this in person here in Helsinki today, and we have invitees from many different countries. This is a symposium that we're connecting or combining two projects. Trees for Development is our research project that has been going on since 2003. I will get more into the details about this project, but in combination with this project, we also have elaborated one where we are working on training future experts, and that is our REMM project. But it is a combination of these two that we're really focusing on sharing experiences on tree plantations, tree growing as means of ecological restoration in the global south. And these two projects is what has made it possible for us to organize this symposium here in Helsinki and to bring our partners from Mozambique, from Madagascar, and from Ethiopia to Helsinki this week. So very happy to have that possibility. What is it that we're really interested in our research is that we notice there is a shift going on in the narrative about what environmental governance, environmental concerns are and how it's framed. There's been a lot of headlines where trees and forests have become very central to the global environmental governance for a long time now. And we, as a research team here in Helsinki, Markus Kröger and we have been working with forestry topics before, but then it's been mostly the productive side and industrial forest plantations. But what we noticed was that there is something going on that is promising an improved environment, a restored ecology, and that it can also be connected to the climate targets, and now recently also to the biodiversity targets that are going on a global scale. And forest seems to be, again, very central to this narrative on how to save the planet from the climate emergency above all, but as I said, also the ecological crisis that is looming with biodiversity loss. I mentioned this, we have two different funders in this project. One is the project that is financed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's a collaboration between the Research Council of Finland and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with their program Develop 2. So this is the second time they have a program that is focused on development, global development issues, focused on also training and helping researchers in the global south to reach an audience to a wider scale. So that is where we are. And then we have TFK, if I could get some help from Marketa on what that stands for.
I think it's Team Finland Knowledge.
Team Finland Knowledge, which is the Finnish National Agency of Education, that is also wanting to build educational cooperation between Finland and Global South partners. And so we combine this in order to be able to actually work even more with our partners in Mozambique and Madagascar. The aim of our project, the research project, TFD, Trees for Development, what it's called, is to offer a detailed examination of different types of ER involved in tree planting schemes. And we're working on at a global analysis level, and we're also working with empirical cases in 4 different countries. So as we are social scientists, we do have also natural scientists, biologists in our team, in our partner countries. But we as a research team were very much interested in the social dimension, the political dimension, and the economic dimension of what's going on in this organizational landscape of ecological restoration involving trees. So very much the analysis of the socio-ecological and political economic dynamics of this. These are the different work packages. You will hear more from us. Soon you will hear on the global analysis from the work pack 1. I will introduce a little bit of the findings from work pack 2 tomorrow. And then we have our experts from the countries. Today we don't have in this event anyone from Brazil, I think, here today. But from the other partner countries, we will hear more during these days. This is just to show that what's going on is on many different dimensions, many different levels of analysis that one could take. And actually, I can say now, looking back, we're in 2026, we started 23, that it has been a very challenging topic to approach because it's multi-level and it involves so many different organizations, so many different definitions of what ecological restoration is. What is it that we're talking about? What organizations are we talking about? What institutions are we talking about? And it's all the time also changing. So when we're talking about the kind of forestry that comes with the Finnish forestry sector, it's actually easier to pin down what's going on. But when we're going into ecological restoration, it's no longer about production and maybe production of pulp or paper or carbon. It's about many different things and purposes that are involved. And the practices that go into planting, restoring, regrowing, natural farm and manage natural regeneration we have as a topic as well in Ethiopia. They are very different in every site. So to find, and then we have the institutional environment that is all the time also evolving, that is supporting these systems financially, politically, and framing what is the priority, which is the root system that you can see here down here. That too is all the time changing, and that brings in another level of complexity. So this is by no means a straightforward project. There's a lot of different dimensions to be studied. What is it that that ecological restoration is? Well, I can say within our project we have had quite a lot of discussions on the definition of this, and where do trees enter into the picture? The Society of Ecological Restoration had a primer that they already in 2004 came out with, and there they define it as the process of assisting the recovery of an ecosystem that has been degraded, damaged, or destroyed. Straightforward, easy, right? But what is an ecosystem that has been degraded, damaged, or destroyed? That is also something that can actually be into detail discussed and debated. But what it also shows is that the ecological restoration as such, one could say as an organizing practice. I'm an organizational scholar, so I like to look at it as through the organizational dimension. It is a process that is long-term. There's no quick fix, and there's not just the tree planting or putting a seedling in the ground and then it's ended there. There are many different dimensions of it. The Society of Ecological Restoration is very ecologically focused, but what we can see is that there are many social dimensions to restoring ecologies as well. The human agency is important, although it's not the only part. So humans are assisting the recovery. Then there is a question of how much of it is controlled and managed and how much is actually the ecosystem and the non-human agency in this organizational system. How much does actually the water do to restore? What is the role of the trees? And if we only have one native tree species, such as the eucalyptus monocultures, we know from before that it really doesn't restore so much. It does actually dry up soil and create a lot of other different problems. A big topic is what is it that we're referring to as restored? What is the reference condition? Talking about baselines and the additionality in restoration circles. What is the above and what is the aim? Do we have an imagined past or an imagined future? What are we relying on? Why is it forest? Why isn't it pastoral landscapes? That is another topic that also come up as a dimension that needs to be discussed when we define what ecological restoration is. Then, which I will talk about more tomorrow, then we come also to the financial side of the topic, and then we enter into new dimensions of what ecological restoration maybe is becoming or has become with different financial systems and carbon markets and the biodiversity markets that today are being connected into this organization field. In the past 15 years, I would say, it's very much been focused on tree planting alone when we're talking about carbon markets in particular, or restoring forests. I see there is a diversified discussion on that today, and maybe also more of a critical outlook on, is it only forest or do we need other things? There are many objections towards just having this very forest-centric viewpoint of the reference conditions, one could say. But tree planting has been very central in this field in the past 15 years, I would say, or even longer, one could say. Like forestation has been very central in thinking of how to return ecologies to their original state. There might be a place for tree planting. There might be other places where that would not be so central. Carbon offset, carbon markets often attached to ecological restoration, especially when we're speaking of forests, but that's not the whole scene of it. There are many other dimensions to it. Not monoculture or production landscapes, although those are sometimes labeled as ecological restoration, but those wouldn't maybe fit into the ecological definitions of what we're looking at. And it's not just about vegetation cover. So often you can see discussions, so we need to increase the biomass on top of the soil, but not then looking at the whole of the ecosystem and how it functions. So, and it's absolutely not about creating green assets, but about the real focus need to be on this ecological recovery if we're talking about ecological restoration. But also, I would say, add one dimension is that local context and the local communities and how are they involved and what happens to them as interventions are being done. Who is making the decision about these things? So as I said, forest restoration is very central in all of these discussions. Very often we end up discussing forests, but it could be grasslands and savannas, it could be rivers, it could be watersheds. But somehow forests have become very central as the place to start with. But what counts as a forest is contested, and it's also shaped by different agendas, both political and economic. As I mentioned, there is this financialization of this field, especially through carbon markets, and a lot of NGOs, impressively amount of NGOs that are just dedicated to tree planting or channeling funding towards this field globally have emerged in recent years. Very novel names. We could maybe I'll make a list for tomorrow of all the names that we have mapped around those NGOs that are actually working towards channeling money towards restoration sites in Global South. Some projects prioritize fast-growing, commercially valuable species over biodiversity. So there is a question: is that really what we are speaking of when we're focusing on ecology? And also, as I mentioned here earlier, the interventions on the ground, they really reshape how life is lived. New social hierarchies emerge in the communities where carbon credits, although it might be a very little funding that comes to the community, but it does reach communities, some communities, and we see that that also creates new hierarchies and new structures locally. Nature also changes. So if we think of nature as a carbon sink, we see carbon. If we see nature as a biodiversity hotspot, we see species. If we see nature as something that communities live off, we see something else. So what nature is becomes also very contested, not just what a forest is. So it's important to really look at the details of what ecological restoration is. And it's also important not just to get stuck on trees, carbon, and forests. And I will actually take this more tomorrow. I will just make it clear that this whole field is influenced by what has been before. There is a colonial legacy that comes with the kind of conservationist and settler ecologies and conservationist assumptions that comes into the field. And then we have what I just mentioned, the actual definition of ecological restoration. It comes from the ecological scientist field, and that started in the 1930s, around that time with actually prairie restoration in the US. And what we are working on mostly today is emerging from the global environmental governance agenda that starts from 1992 with the Rio conference and all the different institutional frameworks that have emerged since then. Paris Agreement, the Cannes-Montreal Agreement are the most recent ones, where neoliberal market logics are shaping the field as well. So with that having been said, let's get started, and I will now